Welcome back, souls, to another episode of our skin education series. And today we're going to be talking all about how to care for an oily skin. But before we get into it, I just want to say my name's Kathleen. If you didn't know me already, I am the owner and lead therapist here at Soul Awaken Skin Therapies. And I do all kinds of videos to help educate you about your skin. So in these skin education sessions, they are live videos. So if you are here watching live, hello, leave a comment below. Please tell me your name, where you're from, ask me your questions. This is a really good opportunity for you to be able to get your questions answered. So this broadcast will go for about 30 minutes. We might wrap it up a little bit quicker today because this is a topic that doesn't really need much context at all. We're really following on from previous skin education series, I should say videos, topics, that's the one I was looking for, where we're talking about your skin type. So 2 videos ago we spoke about how to identify your skin type, and last week we spoke about a dry skin type, and today we're talking about an oily skin type. So hello Jackie. So to kind of recap every little bit for you, just so if you are new and it's the first time you're watching it, I want to just quickly mention the genetic skin type so you're fully aware of kind of where I'm going with this, because we have the traditional skin typing, which you might know as oily, dry, sensitive, combination, and goodness, I think that was it. I don't follow that method. I use a spectrum method, right? So where oily and dry is on a spectrum, so you're not just one type, you're somewhere on a spectrum. So right at the top, which is like a 10, would be oily, and right down the bottom, which would be like a 0, would be lipid dry. So oiliness is on a scale. And then you've got sensitivity, that is also on a scale. So you're not either sensitive or not sensitive, you're somewhere on the scale, because at the end of the day, we all we all display characteristics of different skin types. So I don't find it helpful to label you into a skin type, and I feel that the combination skin type, can't talk today, combination skin type is really, as said by another corneotherapist, it kind of is a cop-out, because everybody is a combination, right? And if you're just labeling yourself as a combination, you might be, for one, you might not have very good skin health, and you might just be labeling your uneven oil flow as a skin type, where in fact it could just be that you're typing your skin incorrectly. So I don't use combination as a skin type, we use the scaling method. So if you want to learn more about that, listen to the first skin education series on how to figure out your skin type. But remember as well, your skin type is what you were born with. So it's your genetics. You can't change it. Throughout your life, you'll be the same, but you will decrease in oiliness, because this is all to do with our hormones. Hello Emma. So let's just get into today's topic. So how to care for an oily skin type. I have a lot to say on this topic, but it really is quite simple. When you're caring for an oily skin type, it doesn't mean an oily skin is more resilient or tougher skin and you can kind of do whatever you want to it. That is not true at all. You probably have a little bit more wiggle room for sure, because it is a tad bit more resilient, but you still need to take care. Hey. So you really need to take care with an oily skin type, and hear me out. So we're going to jump from the top, talking about cleansing and all the way through to moisturizing. And basically I'm going to go through the differences essentially. So for an oily skin type, that means the skin has a lot of oil flowing through. So it has a good healthy secretion, so usually larger pores, more oil coming through. You tend to be more prone to congestion and breakouts. And why is that? Well, that is because oil is a precursor to breakouts. It's one of the main components that's really happening when we have a breakout underneath in the villous sebaceous unit. So it's not just to do with oil. Remember, there are so many other factors, but the presence of oil really is the precursor to having a breakout. So therefore, more oil, more chance of breakouts, and more chance of the C. acnes bacteria kind of having, I want to put it in a nice way, but we don't have a nice way. They kind of have bacterial sex in the sebaceous gland if things get too blocked. So it kind of leaves a breeding ground for these C. acnes bacteria. So more oil is unfortunately a precursor to congestion and breakouts, but not always. We also, because you've got all this extra oil coming through, you tend to find that these skins, they do kind of require a little bit more of a cleansing, a more thorough cleansing, because again, a cleanser, what does that do? It removes dirt, grime and oil. So when you're a dry skin type, so you're on the other end of the spectrum, you can kind of get away with, you know, a nice creamy cleanser which really kind of hydrates the skin at the same time and kind of sweeps everything up. Whereas an oily skin type, they've got more oil and it's actually harder to mop up oil. You need to use more surfactants essentially. And we're not talking about harsh surfactants like sodium lauryl sulfate. Absolutely not. There are so many really, really gentle cleansers out there that don't strip the skin's natural lipid barrier or acid mantle or hydrolipidic film, whichever you would like to call it. So there's so many of those, and I tend to, if it is someone who is a true oily skin type with those large pores, really strong oil flow, and you can really tell, because remember we spoke about this in the first video, you can really tell if you put your finger just through here, you feel oil. If you put it behind that here, you will feel oil, and they tend to have greasier hair, and it's truly their skin type. And generally people in their family will also have quite an oily skin. So in that case, we really need to be using a foaming cleanser. Now, you can get away with not using a foaming cleanser if you are an oily skin, and I have nothing against it. I just find that in the time that I've been working with skins, it is more important to use a foaming cleanser. But I will just say this right now, I hardly find an oily skin type, like a true, you know, a really, really oily skin type that needs a foaming cleanser. I hardly see it. And I find that anybody can kind of, well, most skin types, if you're kind of on the higher end of oily, maybe not right at the end of the oily scale, you're about a 7, let's say, or even a 6, most people around that mark can still tolerate a foaming cleanser if their skin is healthy. So there are so many factors, but essentially for an oily skin, prefer a foaming cleanser and go for something that is clarifying enough to kind of sweep up those oils. But the thing is, you can go really, really wrong here. And if you do go for something that is too clarifying, too stripping, too much on the skin, you are going to cause more issues for yourself. Probably develop acne, probably get more congestion, probably feel like you have more oil, but it's really not the oil, it's the transepidermal water loss. So you're literally losing water from your skin. So it is a fine balance, and I guess the way to tell this is when you have finished cleansing, you want to kind of feel like, that's nice. Kind of, you don't want to feel like, you know how that feeling when you cleanse, maybe when you use a bar of soap. I've done this in the past when I was really little, and this is why I always hated using bar soaps. You know that feeling and you're like, oh, it's squeaky clean. It's kind of actually gives me shivers thinking about that. That's the feeling you do not want on your skin. You kind of want it to feel cleansed, plump and moist, but not like dry, like, you know, really tight. That's the way you want to tell. And if you can't tell, that's when you want to see a skin therapist or someone who is experienced in this industry, and we can tell you what the right cleanser is for you. But essentially go for something that's not too milky, not too stripping, and meet somewhere in the middle. And honestly, there's so many cleansers. All the cleansers that I have are suitable, and if you feel like you can't really fit into any category, the really cool thing is that I can make a custom cleanser based on your needs. So you can still have a foaming cleanser, but with those kind of creaminess to it. So I'll literally make like a 50-50 cleansing milk and cleansing gel, so a foam. So there's so many options out there, and we can really get creative. When it comes to the rest of your skincare, I actually forgot to talk about this in last week's episode when we were talking about dry skin, and I thought we absolutely must chat about it in today's episode because it's a little bit more relevant. But an oily skin type will tend to need to exfoliate here and there. Now, I could talk all day about exfoliation and how I think we're having a bit of an epidemic, right? Where we're all just wanting to over exfoliate our skin. We get a bit exfoliation happy because you get those instant gratifications like, oh, I'm so soft and smooth. But it does tend to be one of the leading causes of so many skin conditions, and I'm not even exaggerating. One of the first things I do pretty much for all of my clients when they come to me for a skin transformation journey, I say, we got to stop the exfoliation for at least 3 months, because what they're doing is really just taking too much off. So don't let me get on a tangent. Maybe I'll have to do a whole other video on this, but essentially an oily skin, because there's more oil coming through, it's kind of, the skin kind of gets a little bit icky and kind of it's a little bit tougher, and it kind of just gets a little bit clogged-ish. You can get away with a little bit more exfoliation, but not that much more in my opinion. And I think what is a better option than going for, you know, more exfoliation, so you want to go for something like a clay-based mask. So hear me out here. When it comes to, let me just pop that there. So when it comes to exfoliation, you can use a granular exfoliation or you can use a chemical exfoliation. Now, I used to be huge on chemical exfoliations, but I'm not really a big fan that much anymore. The only one I'll use is an enzyme based. It's very, very gentle, but I don't tend to do glycolics and lactic acids anymore. I much prefer a little granular exfoliation product that is really gentle and is not kind of rough and abrasive. So the one that I use here has jojoba beads, so it's super soft. They're round spherical beads, so they actually they stimulate microcirculation in the skins while also kind of just lifting off those little bits of skin cells that are really just hanging on by a thread, or little bits of oil or dirt. So that is what I prefer, but you can go whichever way you like as long as you're not overdoing it. And essentially, in terms of frequency, you could probably do once a week or once every 2 weeks. Once a week is probably really good, but I wouldn't do any more. Now, if you feel as an oily skin that you need to exfoliate every single day or every second day or at least 3 times a week, there's probably a reason for this, and it means you probably need to reevaluate what's going on, because it generally is a sign that your skin is unhealthy and it's not functioning optimally. So this is where we can go wrong with exfoliation, essentially. So if you feel that your skin is a little bit too oily and you're wanting to kind of make things feel really soft and smooth again, but you don't want to over exfoliate, this is when clay masks come in. So it's just so handy, so handy. They are relatively risk-free. You are basically, when you put a clay on, it kind of pulls from your skin, and it gives you a very, very slight exfoliation. It's also remineralizing for many reasons, really depending on which clay you pick. Also anti-inflammatory, so many benefits. But essentially, I love to recommend a clay mask in between exfoliations for an oily skin type if they are a healthy oily skin type. If they're not quite healthy at the moment and things are a little bit imbalanced, it's probably not a good idea to be doing, you know, masking and exfoliation. So again, that's all for another topic. But essentially, rely on your clay-based masks. And one little tip when it comes to clay-based masks that you might not have heard of before is when you pop them on, you know, you've probably seen it in the movies, and the person puts their clay mask on and then all of a sudden everything is just dry and they're like, oh, it's cracking. You know that feeling when you're like, oh, and you're kind of like cracking the whole mask. You don't want it to do that because it's drying out your skin way too much. Just think of it like this. So you put this mask onto your skin, and yes, of course it will dry because it is exposed to the atmosphere and everything outside of it is dry. So you've got your skin which has moisture in it and has oil and water within it, and then we've put this mask on our skin which is full of water, but it is inevitably going to dry out because the atmosphere is dry. So it's drier than our skin, and it is pulling the moisture from the mask, right? So when we have this mask in the middle between the atmosphere and our skin, essentially what it's doing is literally, when you let it just dry out and continue drying out, it's acting as a convalescent. That's not the right word. My words just aren't coming out today. It's a mediator. If you know the word, let me know. But essentially it's pulling water from your skin into the atmosphere. Because of that, it's drier out here and it's more moisture here. So essentially don't do it. Just keep your mask nice and moist. You can let it dry out a teeny bit, maybe through little bits, but you want to keep it moist most of all. And trust me, if you haven't tried it before, you'll go to do it next time and you go, oh, my skin actually feels really supple afterwards. Because quite often when we let it dry out so much, it's like sucking the life out of your skin. We tend to feel like that squeaky clean feeling again that I just mentioned, and that's just stripping your skin, the same as when we over cleanse. So we really just have to find a nice little balance when we're looking after skin. Beautiful. Hello to everyone who's watching. Hello Emily, and hello Brittany. So moving onwards, what do we do for serums and toners and moisturizers and sunscreens? Oh my goodness. Well, I just want to quickly say that toners and serums aren't always necessary. The necessary items in a skincare routine, again, cleansing and moisturizing and sunscreen. Everything else is like a little luxury, but for this video's sake, I will quickly talk about serums and toners and touch on the moisturizers and sunscreen. So toners, my goodness, there are so many different toners, and it really just depends on the skin that you're looking at. So if it is a healthy skin with no blemishes, no issues whatsoever on the skin, you could easily go for something that is hydrating with the water phase. So that means it's adding water to the skin, because water is a different type of hydration. So you've got oil and you've got water, so they're kind of different families. So I would go for something more water-based with humectants, where it actually holds onto water and it also attracts water from the environment. So ingredients you might love are hyaluronic acid, and we have one with dermavigils called Laminara digitata, which is a fantastic water ingredient. I would also think about as well as having a toner with cherolytic agents in there. So what is a cherolytic agent, to be really simple? Well, essentially it is a type of ingredient that is attracted to oil. So it basically kind of, when you use those ingredients, it kind of helps to mop everything up in a way without damaging the barrier at the same time. That's probably not the best analogy for it, but essentially it clarifies the skin in a really gentle way. So urea is one. We also have salicylic acid, that is also one, and they're quite gentle versions, well, depending in what forms you get them. So I love those types of ingredients for an oily skin type, because it just helps to manage the oil that's going on, because we don't want too much oil, because remember, precursor to breakouts, and it just doesn't feel nice to have all that oil. But that's really it when it comes to toners. You don't want to overcomplicate things. I'm not a fan of exfoliating toners. Yeah, not really. I was trying to think if there is an exception, but I feel like I'm past those days. I used to love them, but again, an exfoliating toner, I don't really see the point. I feel like almost a little bit of waste of money there when you could just have a nice exfoliation product rather than that. So the next one on the list is serums, and to be quite honest, serum ingredients, it shouldn't really change that much for all the different skin types, right? So a serum is like a potent delivery of active ingredients into a skin, and it's like you want to pick a serum based on your concerns or the things that you're wanting to address, right? So you may have acne, for example, and you want to target the acne with certain ingredients that your skin is missing. That's what I do here in the clinic, and I make up custom serums just for this. But essentially, a serum is really based off your concerns, and there's just so many out there that it's really hard to say this is an oily one, this is a dry one, because serums are generally like a little bit of a kind of a cross between a toner and a moisturizer. So it's kind of in the middle there. So it's kind of a little bit milky, a little bit creamy, but a little bit watery at the same time. So yeah, you really just want to not overthink this one and really think about, what are my concerns? Do I have a skin condition that I'm wanting to treat? And what am I wanting to change or improve with my skin? And then base your serum off of that. We don't need to overcomplicate things here. When it comes to moisturizing, well, this is probably one of the most important parts for an oily skin type, because I'm sure you've all been there before, and gosh, I hear it all the time. An oily skin type or someone who has more oil in their skin, they'll tend to feel like they don't even want to moisturize in the first place because they've got enough oil going on, but that doesn't help that skin, because remember, there's oil and water in the skin. You kind of want to keep it healthy by giving it that water as well as oil and kind of creating a barrier between your skin and the rest of the world. Moisturizing is so important. You just want to make sure you've got the correct amount of lipids in a moisturizer. That's the easy way of looking at it. So the way you'll find this out, well, if you come to see me, I can formulate your own custom moisturizer for you based off of your level of lipid needs. Or when you go shopping for a moisturizer, you want to kind of start testing everything and feeling what it feels like on your skin. You know, something that is really rich and kind of heavy and oily in a sense is usually has more lipids, right? And when it feels a little bit more gel, kind of like soaks in really easily, it has more water. But you want to make sure you've got somewhere in the middle. And that's the beauty of being able to do your own skincare. It's amazing. I can literally put whatever actives in there, choose the amount of water-based gel, and then also the amount of lipids. It's brilliant. Love, love, love Dermavisuals for that. So it's really simple. Find something that suits your skincare needs. You don't want to be feeling like it's too much oil on your skin, because again, breeding ground for bacteria. But then again, you don't want it to be sinking in so much that you're starting to feel that dryness, but also experience that oil flow. It's not a really healthy thing at all. So find that balance. And when it comes to sunscreen, you probably guessed it, everyone's got to wear sunscreen. There's not really any difference. You might just want to choose a sunscreen that's based on your moisturizing needs. I'm going to use the Dermavisuals range as an example for you here. So someone on the scale of lipid dry to oily, if someone's on the lipid dry end, so they don't have many lipids, what I will do is recommend a moisturizer under their sunscreen. So they're using 2 products in the morning. And that is because the sunscreen, yes, it is a moisturizer, but it doesn't tend to be, depending on the skin, it's sometimes not enough for a skin. So you want to put the moisturizer under the sunscreen. But for an oilier skin type, somewhere on that end of the scale, you can just use the sunscreen, and it is usually hydrating enough. And you really do change as the days and the weather and life and all of these factors are going on. So that's just a bit of an example, and that's why I love having a sunscreen that is also a moisturizer. Personally, some days when I'm riding to work, I will just usually use a sunscreen or the sunscreen with some antioxidants underneath. And sometimes if it's like a really kind of warm day and I'm going outside, I'll just put the sunscreen on as well with the antioxidants, because I don't want to feel like too much moisture is there. But But if it is a bit more of a colder day and there's lots of winds and I'm kind of going to be in a warmer environment or a lot of aircon, I will layer it on with a moisturizer, antioxidants underneath. I hope that's making sense. And that's the beauty of skincare. It doesn't have to be, you know, the same thing every day. It's about formulating a skincare routine that really suits you, and it's like a wardrobe. Actually, that's the best analogy for it. Yes. So when you go to your closet at home, you don't just go, all right, that's the same pants and shirt, I'm going to wear that because that's what I wear on Wednesdays. You don't do that. You think about, well, how is my day going to look? Where am I going? What is the weather like? Am I going to be cold? Am I going to be hot? You're thinking about everything involved. And that's the same thing with skincare. You should have a little wardrobe, doesn't need to be a big wardrobe, of a cleanser, a moisturizer, perhaps a serum or a toner if you wish, and a sunscreen. And it's always nice if you have a couple of different options in there. That's what I obviously have because I have the clinic here, but you don't have to as well, but you can still customize on how you use your product based on the day. So it's a wardrobe. I love that analogy. But yeah, when it comes to an oily skin type, you do have a little bit of wiggle room, but you do also have that precursor to breakouts and also congestion in the skin. Honestly, that is really it. Get yourself a really good clay-based mask and get yourself a nice gentle cleanser that's not too stripping but not too hydrating. And honestly, that is really it. Skin does not have to be complicated at all, and it's really just about understanding the main components of a skin. And we're really, when you want to break it right down to skin types, it's the amount of oil and it's the amount of sensitivity in the skin. And when you know where you are on the scale, you can go, all right, well, these are the products that suit me based off of my skin type. So that is it, souls. I hope you really enjoyed this today. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to answer them. And if you have suggestions for any videos in the future, I have planned the content out till August, which is crazy to think, but I'm always happy to hear your suggestions and come up with other video topics, maybe throughout the week or when we get to August. Feels weird to be this organized. Anyhow, have a beautiful, beautiful night. Thanks for being here with me, and I will see you here next week. Bye.